So kind of just first of all, really quickly, what is TSAM Angel Tree? How did it come about? And what's the background behind it? So Data Paradigm, we are a software development company based out of Dallas, Texas, who have a 23 plus year history with the Salvation Army developing different software solutions for all different areas of business within the Army. Many of you will be already very familiar with our TSAM platform. You'll use it for things like meeting manager, processing contracts, or camping, or all of the different modules that we have available. So many of you are users of TSAM already, even if you're new to the Angel Tree program. And then some of you are new to TSAM altogether. But it is a platform that we've been developing with the Salvation Army for many years. The Angel Tree module in particular, we started developing back in 2015. Initially, that was with the Dallas-Fort Worth Area Command. They operate a very large Angel Tree program and really saw some opportunity there to be able to kind of digitize and improve a lot of their processes. So we worked hand in hand with them. And then because of that success that we were able to find there, we were able to kind of replicate that and make that available for Salvation Army units across the country in all 4 territories. So as of last year, we had 554 individual locations, so core and area commands across the country using this particular Angel Tree solution. Combined, for all of the work that you all do, we served 650,000 angels, over 650,000 angels last year, or rather, you served them, and we were able to be a small part of helping with that through our Angel Tree platform. So we're really proud and honored to kind of be a part of that process. And we've seen, like I said, year over year, lots of growth, and that's enabled us to add more and more features and offer new and exciting things kind of in the Angel Tree space. So we've been really pleased and happy to be able to join in with you and offer that. The first thing we learned about Angel Tree, kind of jumping into the world of learning how such a very labor-intensive process, you all are the boots on the ground. I don't have to tell you how much work it is to run an Angel Tree program. We are always so astounded to see the work that goes into it. And there's lots of different ways to do it. And the first thing that we kind of learned when we started working with the Army trying to build something to support their Angel Tree program was that there are very few 2 locations that do it the same. Everybody kind of has their own methods for going about how to run an Angel Tree program. And, we really wanted to make sure that our Angel Tree solution was really going to fit all of those different needs across different communities that have different programs and run them different ways. And so I think that's what really makes TSAM Angel Tree special, is that there are lots of different options that allow you to run your program the way you want to in your community. So just hitting a couple of the high-level features. Of course, if you all are returning users, you know very well about these features, but just to kind of throw them out there for anybody who's brand new. And we'll talk about how you can use our resources to dive in and learn more information about these things. But just some of the highlights. The Angel Tree program on TSAM is totally web-based, which means you can reach it from anywhere, any device. It can be your mobile device, your computer at the office, your tablet at home. You can use anything that is web-enabled to get to Angel Tree, and that's not just for the applicants for applying and doing their applications on their phone. You can actually manage much of your campaign from there as well. So on the fly, you can pull up your phone and see how your Angel Tree program is going, how many angels do you have, and I think that's really important because it's all web-based and because of the way we're able to offer and configure it. There is no software that needs to be installed. There are no licenses that need to be purchased for individual users. There's an unlimited number of users for your location, so as many seasonal staff and volunteers that you have that you need to put into the system, you're able to do that without having to incur any extra costs. Like I said, again, one of the first things we learned was that no two locations do Angel Tree the same. And because of that, it was very important for us to put in a lot of administrative tools that allow you to customize the system to your own needs. Now, if this is your first year using it, you're going to spend a lot of time going through these campaign settings and understanding what they all mean and how they can be configured to support your version of an Angel Tree program. There's a lot to go through. It can kind of feel overwhelming the first time you do it. But the great thing is from year to year, these settings can be copied over. So you don't have to redo it every single year. You can copy your settings from the last year and just kind of tweak it based on your needs for the upcoming year. So it's worth spending the time to get really familiar with these campaign settings. It does take a little bit of time. You have to dedicate some thought to it. But once you do get it set up, it kind of automates itself. A lot of these elements automate themselves, and then of course you can copy them over from year to year. So I think that's really an important and helpful tool. There are all kinds of things that you can customize within the system. There's no limit to the number of things you can customize, all the way down to when and where things are happening for your Angel Tree program, where your warehouse is, what your schedule will be, what your angel tags are going to look like, how you're going to print them. All of those are customizable and configurable settings. So we really want to provide you with all of the tools you need to be able to customize that, and not necessarily put you in a box. Just because you use this program, it means you have to run Angel Tree a certain way. It's still totally up to you how you want to run your program. We just offer the solutions that allow you to customize that. And then I think the big thing that sets our Angel Tree program apart, and really the reason we've seen such a huge rise in usage of it over the last few years, is our online application process. So this is what allows your applicants to apply from home online without having to come stand in line at your building. It's much easier, more convenient for them. It also takes less resources for you. You don't have to have volunteers sitting there every day taking applications. You can have those rolling in online. And that really saves a lot of time and resources, and extra time that it takes to re-enter data and things like this. It all just flows from the initial online applicant intake. Now, that's not to say, and we do have a few questions in this arena, so we'll get to this in a little bit, but that's not to say that you have to use online intake. I think another really important thing to understand about the customizable nature of TCM Angel Tree is that you can choose to still do what we call in-person interviews, where you actually have the client there in front of you or on the phone, and you're actually taking their application. You can still do that using TCM Angel Tree, and we still give you all the necessary tools to be able to enter those applications seamlessly into the system and avoid any kind of extra rekeying of data. So you can still use both. In fact, you can use both at the same time. We can talk a little bit about that later. But that online feature, of course, is something that really kind of sets TCM Angel Tree apart, but is not necessarily something that you have to use. So I want to be careful to not give that impression. We have tons of tools, which we'll go through a few of them here in a little bit, but tons of tools that allow you to, once the applications are submitted into the system, whether that's from online applications or via in-person interviews, lots of tools to help you organize the approval process, in those applications approved and moved on through the system. Lots of new communication tools, so the opportunity to send out mass email and text messages to your Angel Tree applicants, making sure that you can be in touch with them for important information, and then all of the different notifications that the system sends, sending out appointment reminders, appointment confirmations, these kinds of things, which really saves you time from not having to go back and do those yourself. So the system really takes care of a lot of those things and provides a lot of the kind of administrative tools for your Angel Tree program. Another thing that we'll spend a little bit of time talking about, because we did have several questions in this area, is about how you can manage your corporate and community sponsors, how you can use the system to assign angels or groups of angels to your sponsors, how they can then use that to track who within their organization is adopting angels and all of that good stuff. Lots of really helpful tools in that area as well. And then another really cool feature that not, again, optional, not everybody uses, but another really cool feature of TSAM Angel Tree is the online angel adoptions. So just like your applicants can apply for Angel Tree from home, your donors can also search for and adopt angels from home as well. And then, go through the process of doing their shopping and dropping their gifts off. But this is really another way to reach donors who may not be passing, that Angel Tree station at the mall, but who may hear about the program maybe through social media or something like that and be able to adopt an angel directly online. This is another very valuable tool that can help you get those angels out there and make sure that they're all getting adopted. So those are a few things that I think kind of set TSAM Angel Tree apart as a full holistic solution to your Angel Tree campaign and everything that kind of goes along with that. So what we want to cover today is a little bit more in detail about the support that's available, the resources that are available, and then of course get to the good stuff of answering your questions. So I'm going to pause here for just a moment and swap over to our site here and get started with that. Alrighty. All right, so I've jumped into the actual Angel Tree module. If there are folks on here who haven't even signed up yet, who haven't even opened their campaign yet, it's definitely, we'll go through where you can find resources on how to do that. So if you can't get here just yet, that's okay. We'll kind of cover how you can get the resources you need to do that. But there are a few things I want to point out very specific to resources. And making sure that as you get started, or if you are already started using Angel Tree, that you know where to go for help. That's really important to us. We want to make sure that we are providing you with everything you need to have a successful season. So a couple of things I want to point out. First of all is a new feature that we've added to try and help stay in better communication with you, and that's the announcement feature. So if you look here in the menu across the top of the module here, you'll see where it says announcements. And then you see that number 3, that red number 3. That indicates that there are 3 announcements, new announcements that you haven't seen yet. Those are going to be very important to make sure that you're looking out for those as we push new features, as things change over time, to get the most up-to-date information. You want to make sure you're looking out for those. So if you see that red badge pop up with a little number there, that means that there are announcements that you want to see. So you can click on it, and then you can see the different announcements. For example, there was an announcement here regarding the webinars this week, and the links on how to register. So if we have any more webinars or events coming up, we'll make sure to post an announcement about that as well. What we'll also do is post information here about new features or updates. As we go through the season, we try not to add too many new things because, you're in the middle of Angel Tree season and we don't want to overwhelm you with new features. But having said that, we like to keep up to date and we like to always be moving forward. So as we have these, as I said, 554 locations across the U.S. So far using TSAM Angel Tree this year, we get a lot of requests. Hey, it would really be helpful for us if we had this additional tool or this additional feature. And if it's something that we can do and that will be beneficial across the board to a lot of people, sometimes we will work those in mid-season if it's something that's like really going to provide a lot of bang for the buck kind of thing. We will try to work those in without disturbing too much of the piece. So if we do anything like that, you'll see notifications here in the announcement section. And then otherwise, we'll also post things here. If we're getting a lot of questions to our support about the same type of thing, maybe the same kind of question that's coming up. It's helpful for us to share that information across the board in case other people are having that question and just haven't thought to send that in yet. So once you'll notice that once I view one of these messages, the message stays here, so I can always come back and refer to it. But you can see that the red announcement badge there, now it just has a number 1. That's because there's only one that I haven't read yet. So that's my inbox number. But any of the announcements that I've previously seen, they'll still be here if you need to refer back to them. So there's a helpful one here this week, specifically about adding users to campaigns. That was a question we were getting a lot in support, and so thought it would be helpful to share that. So all of that to say, if you see that red badge that has a number next to the announcements in the menu, take a quick second to take a look at that and make sure that you are up to date on kind of all of the important and current information on TSAM Angel Tree. So now let's talk about resources. So what's out there? Like I said, we do kind of make changes from time to time, and we try to keep all of our resources updated. There will be things like videos that take a little bit longer to go back and update. So you'll want to be conscious to kind of always be looking at the new information as well. But if you look under this resources tab, there are three things here. First of all, the FAQs. So I'm going to click on that. I'm not sure everybody is aware that this is here, but there are plenty of FAQs, frequently asked questions, listed here, and we add things to this all the time. As we start to get the same questions over and over, we will try to post those on here. So you can scroll through them, and there are full written walkthroughs of how to do certain things, how to do some of your campaign setup, for example. These are pretty detailed walkthroughs with screenshots that will walk you through how to do that process. Something else that you may not realize with the FAQs is that they are searchable. So if I scroll back up to the top, there's a search bar here. I was getting a question last week a couple of times about a field on the Angel application called the blouse, and why that was only showing up for girls or boys. And so here's an example where I can use the FAQs to search for the word blouse, and you can see that will bring up an FAQ that specifically relates to that. And you can see it's highlighted there where your keyword phrase is within that FAQ. So if you haven't been using the FAQs and you find yourself with a lot of questions, that is one good place to start. Use the search feature, browse them, do whatever you need to do to find what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, this is a very good resource for you to use, and I'm not sure that everyone knows that that's there, so I wanted to make sure to point that out. So like I said, we do try to keep those updated, but as things change from time to time, those will have to be updated. So keep an eye there and make sure that you kind of use that as a first stop if you have a question. Another very valuable resource is our training videos. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and this is going to launch us into YouTube. This is actually our TSAM YouTube library of videos, and there's all kinds of things here. We have shorter videos that are broken down kind of by section. So for example, here's a 15-minute video about setting up your campaign. If you're one of those people who said you're brand new to TSAM and you need the whole shebang, you need the whole training, how do I even start this thing? That's the first video you'd want to start with, the training video for campaign admin. And then we have several other videos broken down again by section. So one that's specifically devoted to user admin, how to add users, how to manage their permissions, those kinds of things. So those are the best starting points, I would say. Those shorter videos, really it's these first 6 here. Those shorter videos that are really chunked out by topic. Those are really important. I think if you're just getting started, you really want to start with the campaign admin video and the one down here that says online application campaign configurations. If you're going to be using online applications, you'll want to pay specific attention to those settings to make sure that you know how to enable that. So moving on from those shorter videos, what we also try to do is when we hold webinars similar to this one, we will record those. They're automatically recorded and posted out to our YouTube channel. So these are longer videos. You can see the timestamps on a lot of them. They are very in-depth. I would really recommend using these if you truly are brand new to the process, because they're going to go into detail and tell you what you need to do and why. So it's quite a volume of work. You'll hear my voice on there a lot, so I apologize for that. But these videos are going to be, again, very in-depth, and we try to just post those every time we have a webinar in case anybody misses anything. So be sure to take a look through there. You can find pretty much everything you're looking for. You may have to scroll through a couple of videos to get to the detail that you're looking for, but those are going to be the best way to kind of get your initial understanding of the system. If you're brand new to it, you really want to visit those materials. Okay. As new videos are posted, we will post announcements about that there's a new video and these are the topics that it covers. So if we do post anything like that, you'll be able to see that in the announcement section as well. And then as far as resources go, if neither of those two things kind of get you what you needed, if you have additional questions that you're not able to find the answers to there, or if you have issues, if you find a bug, if you have, if you think you know what you're doing, but it's just not working the way you expect, email us. That's going to be the best way to contact us. That will just click email us. That will create an email to our support team. That address is tsamsupport@dataparadigm.com, and that will create a support ticket where our support team can go through and get you the information that you need. So that's the best way. That's the best way to reach us. If you are not able to find the resources that you need, please be sure to reach out, and we'll do everything we can to get back to you as quickly as possible. So with all of that said, that's kind of just a quick introduction to the resources that are available. But now I want to spend some time actually going through some of the questions that were submitted to us ahead of time. Give me just 1 second to pull up my list of questions here. And then we'll also, like I said, we'll also try to go through some of the questions that are being submitted now as well, if they don't get answered as part of this. All right, so I've taken the questions and I've kind of grouped them together. We did get several questions that are kind of along the same line, so I'll kind of group those together. And then I've kind of broken them out by the different phases of Angel Tree that they fall into. So is this campaign setup versus intake question versus sponsors and adoptions, those kinds of things. So the first question I'll get to is a great question. I love this question. It says, can I run both the online application process and the in-person application process at the same time, and how would that affect our distribution scheduling? So again, if you're totally brand new to this process, that might have sounded a little foreign to you, but let me answer that question. Yes, you can. You can run the online adoption and the in-person adoption at the same time. Let me move us to our campaign admin screen so we can get an idea of what this looks like. So for a single intake site, and we are on the campaign admin intake screen, for a single intake site, you can enable online adoptions. So we're going to go ahead and do that. You can enable your online applications, and then you can also set a schedule for in-person applications at the same intake site. So if we have this fictitious core here called the Zuma core. if you are taking applications online at the ZoomaCore, but you also want to be able to do interviews maybe on site at the core for people in maybe people in your shelter or people who come to the core, you can absolutely do that. So while applications are flowing in online, you can set your application schedule, and if you don't know how to do that, all covered in resources, go to FAQs and just type intake schedule, and you'll be able to find that information. So you can set up your schedule, and you can go under applicants, click create new applicant, and you can enter applications here even while applications are being entered on the online site. Now, the next question was, how does that affect distribution scheduling? Well, it kind of doesn't. Let me go back to our campaign admin. So if you remember during campaign admin setup, one of the things you need to do for each intake site is designate which distribution site or sites it is related to. So applicants who come through the ZoomaCore intake site, whether that's online or in person, doesn't matter. If they come through there, according to this setup, they are going to be allowed to be given a distribution appointment at the ZoomaCore distribution site. So you can have applicants that are coming in from online and from in person and be putting them onto the same distribution schedule. Because they are coming through the same intake site, they can go to the same distribution schedule. So at that point, it really doesn't matter where they came from. If I go here under applicant records, well, there aren't any in this campaign yet, but if I go here under applicant records, this is where I would see any applications that have been submitted from anywhere, online or in person. They would all be listed here, and then I can open each of them individually and assign my distribution appointments to the same schedule. So the answer to that question is yes, you can absolutely do both at the same time. You can even do both at the same time from the same intake site, and you can use the same distribution schedule for all of them. So hopefully that answers that question. Now, while we move on to the other questions, I'm going to actually take a step back into our test platform just so I can have a little bit more to work with, and I don't want to upset anyone's actual Angel Tree campaigns here. So let me move over here. And then we had a couple of questions about the intake application itself and how much of that you can customize. Is there a way to add additional notes? Is there a way to customize the questions on there? So let me just walk through that really quickly. So going back to our campaign admin screen, this is something that is very important. This is a hot topic right now because people are setting up their intake sites. If you're not familiar with this, definitely pay attention here. This is an important step. This is where you can configure your application. When I say application, I mean the form that the applicant is filling out either online or if they're being interviewed in person. So either or, this is where we configure that. So you can see, it actually says it, spells it out here. The Angel Tree Public, this is the online application, and then the family applicant intake, this is for regular families being entered manually, so interview style. But I'm going to go ahead and click that. So one of the questions specifically was, is there a way to customize a special place on the applicant step of this form to collect additional information about why they're needing assistance or kind of whatever you wanted to collect? And the answer to that is not at the moment. Right now, what you can customize here is of the list of available questions, you can customize whether you ask those questions or not. If you don't want to ask that question, let's say, for example, we don't want to collect their race and ethnicity, I could just uncheck those boxes, and now we're not going to ask those questions on the application. But there is not a way currently, we'll mark it down for future ideas, but there's not a way currently to enter kind of your own field in here. Unfortunately, we are limited to this list at the time. I'm going to click next until I get over to our Angel step here. There is a little bit more customization you can do as far as the data you collect on individual angels. If you want to take advantage of the list, so let me just say that really quickly. So for the angels, there are a couple of fields: the need, wish, favorite, and then there are 2 custom pick list values here. So if I ask the question of need on my form, it's just going to be an open text box. So the parent can type in whatever it is they want. Like they could say they need an iPad, or they need shoes, or they need whatever. They can just a free form type it in. Another way to do it is use these custom lists, where you can actually build a drop down. So they're not allowed to just type in anything, but they need to choose from something on this list. So this you can edit to an extent. So if I click edit values here, I can actually give it a name. So instead of calling it need, I could call it like Christmas wish number 1. Okay. And I could say these are the things that they're allowed to ask for within that wish section, right? So let's save that. And now that field on my application is going to enable that drop down. Instead of it being just a text value, it's going to enable that drop down. And then it's going to show the custom label that I gave it. So you can customize that. And you can do that for any of these custom lists. So need custom list, wish custom list, favorite custom list, and then the 2 just custom pick lists. Those can be anything you want them to be. So for example, we put in here for an example, like comforter size. So one thing that people often will ask for is comforters. So let's give them the option for that. So you can use those to customize whatever you want. They are limited to those drop-down fields, or those pick list fields. But that is something that you are able to customize and ask specific questions on the Angel step of that form. Okay, so that was a few different questions we got in that vein, and hopefully I covered all of those. Okay. I also got another question. I'm not exactly sure how to take it. I could take it 2 different ways, but I think both are valuable kind of topics to discuss. So I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. The question says, what is the process to handle groups that need 20 or 200 toys, like a group of toys? So I can answer that in 2 different ways. I wasn't exactly sure kind of how it was, what exactly they meant by that. But one way they might have meant it was this special care application. So often we will have groups that come in. Maybe think of this like nursing homes or children's homes or other organizations where you're going to be providing, 200 gifts for seniors. You can enter all of those under one, what we call special care application. Instead of having each of those 200 seniors go apply for Angel Tree, you can have one special care application that kind of groups them under a single application. So you can manage your special care intake here under the, again, we're under campaign admin application. So I can click the special care one, and I can choose what questions we want to ask for each individual on that list. So this is the information. Instead of the information for the parent or the guardian, we're asking for the information on the organization that they're coming from. So, the senior homes or group homes or something along those lines. And then we can collect some basic information about each angel within that. So you may just want, their age and their first name if it's a group of seniors, so that you can provide enough gifts for all of them. So you can do that. If you want to use special care, you don't have to. That is a totally optional thing. But it's different from regular intake because we're not going to be asking all of the same information that we ask for a full family. These are all grouped under kind of a more generic single application. But if you do want to use special care, you cannot do a special care application online. Those are only for regular family applications. So you can't do those online, but what you can do is come here under applicants, click new applicant, and then instead of family, I'll choose special care. And then I'll be able to select which intake site it is, and then I'll be able to actually enter this special care application here. Once it's entered, the angels that are special care function just like any other angels. They can still be put up for adoption. They can be put up for adoption online. They can be allocated to different sponsors. So they really function the same. They just don't have as much detail as a normal angel because you're typically entering them in bulk rather than as individual families. Okay, so let's get out of that. So that's one thing you may want to use special care applications. The other way that I thought that question might have been, what that might have been leaning towards, had to do more with the allocation of angels and kind of corporate sponsors. So if you have a group of, a corporation or a church or some community partner who wants to provide gifts for 200 angels at the same time, how could we facilitate that? So I think that kind of leads us towards the topic of angel allocation. And I did have several questions on this. I do want to point out, hopping back over to our YouTube channel here, there is a whole webinar that is specific to sponsors and allocations and online adoptions. So probably the good first half of that is all about sponsors and allocations and how you can use the tools that are available to do that. So if you want an in-depth knowledge of that, about how to enter your sponsors into the system, how to assign angels to them, how they can use the online features to track their adoptions, these kinds of things, you definitely want to jump in there and take a look at probably at least a good first half of that video. So look for that one that's specific about sponsors and allocations. We did that one last year, so it is pretty up to date. But jumping back over here, I'll answer a couple of specific questions that came through about allocations. So first of all, just a really quick recap of kind of what allocations are. If I come here under angels and I go to angel allocation, this is where we are going to be able to say, okay, these are the places or groups that are going to be adopting out our angels in mass. So this is not a place where you're going to be entering just a single person who adopted one or two angels. We have the whole adoption suite for that. But this is where we're putting people like our sponsors, our corporations, our churches, who are taking large numbers of angels for adoption. So in order to add a new one, I just come here under angel allocations and I'll click a new sponsored allocation. Here I can enter the information on this group, for example, something like that. So good old Jerry is going to adopt a bunch of kids from us. So I can keep their contact information. This is a place where kind of whoever is running your kind of community partner side of your Angel Tree program, this is where they're going to want to go to keep track of all of this. So you can track specific details about how many angels they want, this kind of thing. Let's say that they're going to take 100 of our angels, and maybe they'll take 20 of our special care angels as well. And then one really important thing, this answers a question that we got about how sponsors can take the angels that they've been allocated and actually adopt them. So if I go here, you see where it says allow online adoptions. I need to select yes. What that means is that each of the sponsors will have their own link that allows us to send people to adopt their angels. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to actually switch over to one that I already have set up, which is what I thought I was, so pardon me. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you can see the Dallas Cowboys allocation that I set up there, and we said that they need 100 angels. There, again, go watch the video about how to allocate angels. There are 2 different methods for allocating angels. One is very robust system that does all of the heavy lifting for you, and then one is a much more case by case basis where you can hand pick groups of angels to assign to a specific allocation. But make sure you go and watch that if you need info on how to do that. But the specific question I got was about how, okay, now that I've allocated the angels, how do they track who's adopting them? How do they use the online features for that? So I'm going to click on this edit pencil just to show us again. This is our sponsor record here for Jerry Jones, and I have selected yes, I want to allow online adoptions. And because of that, you'll see that I get this special link here. And it tells me here that this link is specific to this sponsor only. So this is the link that I would provide to Jerry Jones so that his organization could manage their 100 angels that I assign them. I would not give the same link to a different sponsor. A different sponsor is going to have their own link. That's very important. Make sure that you are giving the right link to the right sponsor. So you can find it here. All I did was click that edit pencil and open the window here, and I can see the link. I can click to visit it, or I can copy and paste it in order to hand that out to someone. I'll go ahead and close this. I can also, there's a little arrow icon here to the right. I can click that to view the site. So the way that this works is you will hand that link to your contact at that location, at that corporation. They will then distribute that to their employees or their church members or whomever is going to be adopting the 100 angels that we've allocated them. And then they will actually be able to go through the checkout process online to see who the available angels are. There's only a couple here in our test platform, but they'll be able to select which one or ones they wish to adopt. And then they'll be able to provide information about themselves as the donor. So this is really important. So this is a way that you can now allocate angels, a big batch of angels, to a particular partner or corporation or church or whomever it is, but then you can still track the details of the individual individual adoptions within the allocation. So this is really important. This is something that was incredibly helpful last year to people who are working with corporate sponsors. So I would just fill out my donor info here and submit that. I'm not going to take the time to do that. But now that angel will show up in our system. If I come back over to my to the TSAM side, I come back over to my angel record, that angel will now show up as adopted. So there are a couple examples down here at the bottom where you would be able to see, okay, they were allocated to the Dallas Cowboys, but this is the person who actually adopted them. And that's really helpful. So when you have your corporate sponsors, for example, you can use this filter, and I can filter by allocation. So I wanted to see all the angels assigned to Dallas Cowboys. So this I can use this to get a list of the angels. I can export this. I can say, give me a list of all of these angels. I could also come here and say, okay, I want to see the ones that are allocated to Dallas Cowboys, but that are still in the status of allocated, meaning they haven't been adopted yet. So in this case, our 2 have not been adopted yet. And so this is really helpful because as the season goes on and it looks like, okay, the Cowboys aren't going to be able to get these last 2 adopted, I need to reassign these angels. This gives you a way to very quickly see, okay, which ones have been allocated to them and then which ones have not been adopted. And then I can really quickly go here and do several different things. I can print tags for these angels and stick them on a tree at the mall to see if somebody will adopt them that way. I could change their allocation. So I click update allocation, and I can maybe assign them to our general online allocation so that somebody in the general public might adopt them instead. So that is a really useful tool. So now those 2 have moved. Now they're allocated to our online adoption and not the Cowboys anymore. So you can see that. So that's a really useful tool if you have people who are kind of managing your community partners and those sponsors who want to kind of buy for a block of angels all at once. This is kind of how you can designate, okay, these are the angels they're shopping for. If you have, so everything I kind of just described was a scenario where your corporate sponsor is actually helping you facilitate adoption. But the other kind is a sponsor who just, they just want to give you 200 toys. And they just want you to give them to whoever, right? Whoever they fit. So you can also go in there and just allocate the angels to that group. That group gives you 200 gifts. And then you can actually just come and select them all. Let's say I select the ones that are allocated, and I'll just mark them as checked in, which means the gifts have been received, even though they never actually got adopted by an individual. They were allocated and the gifts were returned to that angel, so I can actually just check those in, and the system now knows that those angels have been fulfilled, right? Their status changed to fulfilled. So there's a couple of different ways you can use the allocation feature to kind of manage different relationships you have with different sponsors, depending on how you're set up with them. Okay, so moving back a step, I think I actually got ahead of myself a little bit by jumping to allocations, but moving back really quickly to a topic related to intake. So got a couple of questions here, so I'm going to go back to our applicant records. And there are a few things that I want to point out here, and a couple of things that we are just getting a lot of questions on in our support queue, so I want to make sure to throw this out there as well. This is where, if you're not familiar, applicant records is where I can see a list of all of the applications that are coming into my system for AngelTree. Remember that those can be coming either from online applications or they can be being entered directly by our interviewers by clicking new applicant here. But either way, however they get into the system, this is where they land. One thing that it is important to understand are the different statuses of these applications. So you'll see in the column to the far right, all the way to the end, you have the status column, which indicates which status each of these applications are in. So of course I can click to sort by status. I can also use the filter to search by individual status. For example, I might want to see applications that are submitted, meaning they're ready for me to process. But one thing I wanted to point out, make sure everybody is aware of, is there is a checkbox here that says include online draft applications. So by default, we do not include those in this report. That's because you have people who either just started their application online and aren't even finished yet, or they started it, but they need to come back later to upload their documents, so on and so on. And that, for whatever reason, that application hasn't been submitted yet. Maybe they started it and then they just said, oh, never mind, I'm not going to finish this. For whatever reason, it's still a draft. So in order to kind of not cloud your view with the ones that are still drafts, we don't show those by default. But it is important to know how to see them if you need to. So some scenarios where you may need to see online draft applications. If someone calls you up and says, hey, I'm trying to apply online and, it's not taking this or that, or, I don't know, if you just need to kind of, in a customer service way, help them understand what's going on with their application, you can see it, even though they haven't submitted it yet and it's still a draft. You can see it by selecting to include online draft applications. Okay. Another really important reason you might need to see draft applications is to know kind of where you stand with your online intake threshold. So what do I mean by that? If I go back over here to campaign admin, one of the things we set up as part of our intake, was the max, here, let's go in this way, was the max number of applications allowed for this location. Okay, this one doesn't have one. It didn't have a max. I guess they just opened the floodgate, which is okay. You can do that. But most places will have a maximum number of online applications. So let's say it's 1,000. Okay. What that means is the system is only going to allow 1,000 people to start an application. Okay. What we don't want is for people to be able to get into the application, spend all that time filling it out, And then at the very last step, when they hit submit, it says, oh, actually, we've reached the threshold and you can't submit this. That would not be a good experience for them. So instead, we catch them up front. So at the point where they go to start their application, as long as they have a valid zip code and all of those great things that the online application looks for, the first thing we do is check, is there enough space? Has this location, this intake location, reached its max number of online applications yet? And a lot of times it will. That will happen to you. And so we'll get questions often saying, well, how come people aren't able to put in their applications? Generally, the main reason why is either they're putting in a bad zip code that's not part of your campaign, or you've already reached the maximum for that intake site. So in order to tell if you've reached it, so for this one, the Dallas Salvation Army Christmas distribution, that's the name of our intake site, and they have a max number of 100. So if I come over here to applicant records, I can do a filter here to say, show me the applications for that intake site. I want to include draft applications because that is figured into the math, right? That is figured into the count of applications that have been started there. So if I run that filter, I can see, okay, cool, only 8 people, only 8 applications. So at this moment, I'm nowhere near my max. But if that is happening, that is one extra way that you can verify, okay, yeah, this is like this because we've reached our max. Now, a tip, I know different locations handle this differently, and I'm not saying this is how you have to do it, but one thing that I have seen done, just kind of as a tip, is if you've reached your max, but you still have a ton of draft applications, so I can use this same filter. So I'll add in, and the status equals draft. So of those 8, 2 of these are draft. So I can look at these and say, you know what, these were created on this day or that day, and it doesn't look like this person's going to finish it. So I can actually remove those. I can click the red X to delete that application. Now it's going to do a few things. It's going to look and make sure that, in fact, let me cancel this and show you a good one. If I tried to delete one that actually has a distribution code, that should be a warning for me. I need to be sure I really want to delete this because this application has actually already, been given an appointment and the whole thing. So we try to spell that out here so that you're careful about what you're deleting. But, very often, yeah, you're going to want to go in and clear out some of those drafts where people just started it and didn't feel like finishing it, or for whatever reason, so that you can make space for a few more people to apply and get into the program. So you're going to want to kind of think about what rules you want to put in place. But now that I've deleted that particular application, there's one more space available, right? So if I had reached my max, now the next person to apply would get that one space. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I guess that can be a little bit confusing. We'll try to put some more information in place on the screens where you can actually see what your count is versus what your max is versus your current count. So we'll try to improve that. But since we started getting that question a lot, and usually the confusion is they're only looking at the count for that location, they're not including the draft. So make sure you have that include draft applications checkbox checked. Okay, big tip there. Oops. So now that we are talking about statuses, I want to take just a minute to answer another really good question that we got, which is about the decline status. So just really quickly, if you're not familiar, the kind of order of the statuses of an application, it starts as a draft. We talked about that. That means somebody started the application online but hasn't finished it yet. Once they do finish it and they actually complete that and send it in, it will go to a status of pending. So you can see we have a few here that are in a status of pending. From there, it can go to a few different statuses. You can either mark it as return to applicant, meaning you're sending it back to them with some instruction about how to complete their application. Maybe they didn't have a good copy of their driver's license or whatever it is. And you can give them some instruction here in this area. It will send that back, and it will give the application a status of return to applicant. Another one you can do is decline, and we got a great question about the decline option. As it stands right now, you can only decline an application up to the point where it is admin approved. Once it's admin approved, you can no longer decline it because it's already been assigned. Distribution appointments. The angels could have potentially been adopted at that point. So it's a much more dangerous thing to do to decline a family that already made it to the approved status. So the question was, can we have that decline option kind of all the way through to distribution? So maybe a family comes back and says, actually, we don't want to participate for whatever reason, or you find that it was, God forbid, a duplicate or something like that. So we have taken that on board. Whoever asked that question, that's kind of name. We have taken that on board, and we're going to work on putting in a way to do the decline option across the board. So look out for an announcement on that at some point, because that sounds like it's going to be something helpful. But so those are two options. You can return to the applicant, you can decline with this status, or you can submit. So of course, this comes up a lot as well. And we try to put little notes here. So when I hover over this button, I can't click it, but it tells me that they require a distribution appointment in order to submit this. So I know that I need to go down and go to my schedule their pickup. So we'll get questions about, hey, why are all of these applications not submitted? And oftentimes that's what it is. You need to make sure that your intake personnel have been trained that they need to submit these. That's the whole point. Once the application is reviewed, you need to assign the appointment and then hit that submit button. Okay. From there, it goes through a couple of different statuses: the supervisor approve and the admin approve. There are ways to skip the supervisor approval. That should all be covered in one of the videos about intake processing. So there's plenty of detail out there about that. In fact, it's this one here called application intake. That kind of walks you through the different statuses and how to approve. But one other really quick tip, because oftentimes, for whatever reason, the intake staff that you're working with, maybe they're new or they just missed it, but they're going through and they're maybe assigning the appointments, but they're forgetting to hit submit. One really great tip is that you can use what we call the bulk application update. So here under applicants, go to that bulk update option. And here we can see all of our applicants, and then we can filter. So I would say let's filter for all of the applications that are still pending, meaning somebody didn't submit them. And I would do that. Look at the ones that are pending, and then you can actually see here if they've been given a distribution appointment. These ones haven't, so it looks like they truly are still pending. But if I found that these needed to be submitted, I could potentially come here, select them all, and click submit. Now you see how it's grayed out. It won't let me submit that. There is some text there that says because they don't have a distribution appointment, you can't submit them. So even from here, they still have to have that. But it is a really helpful tool to kind of go back and clean up if your intake staff kind of were missing a step, or if you need to do any kind of bulk update, a bulk decline. Maybe all those draft statuses that you have, instead of deleting them, maybe you go in here and actually decline them all instead, so that they are notified that their application was declined kind of due to inactivity or something like that. But this is a great tool where you can come back and do big status updates for lots of applications at once. So that's a really helpful tool that I'm not sure everybody is aware of. So we're kind of hitting the end of our time here. I've answered, I think, most of the questions that we got through the questionnaire kind of beforehand, unless they were very specific to your location, in which case we'll have our support team reach out directly to you if they haven't already. So do feel free to jump off if you need to. I know we've kind of hit our time, But I am going to just take a really quick gander and see if there are any other questions that have come through during our time, and make sure that I get an opportunity to answer those. Okay, yeah, looks like we've got a few. So if you have the time to stick around, feel free to do that. If you don't, that's fine as well. Let's see. Okay, this is a good question, and we do have our support team, standing by, and it looks like they've already answered a lot of these questions, but it might be something somebody else needs to hear as well. The question was, is a zip code necessary in order to submit an angel? So the answer to that question depends on if we're talking about online applications or if we're talking about in-person applications. For online applications, the answer to that is always going to be yes. The zip code is required. If you remember, as part of the campaign setup for your intake site, you had to configure the zip codes that belong to that intake site. So we can see all of those listed here down at the bottom here. So in order for an applicant to even begin their application online, they have to have a valid zip code in one of your intake sites that is allowing online applications. So for that reason, to do it online, yes, the zip code is always required, because that, at the end of the day, is how we know that this applicant belongs to, the Smithville core versus the Johnsonville core down the road. Otherwise, we'd have applications flying all over the place. We need to make sure that the applicants get to the right location, the right core. So that is very important, and yes, is absolutely required. On the other hand, if we're talking about in-person applications, the only reason that a zip code would be required in that case is if you have set it to be required. So if I go here to my family applications, there is a field for zip code right here. And if I check here to say that that is required, then yes, it's required. And whoever is entering the application, so your intake staff or volunteers, if they are entering, they won't be able to move forward until they enter the zip code. So, but that's the only reason on an in-person application that it would be required. Online, it's always required. In person, not usually, but if you come here and select it as required, it will be required, just like any other field that you select to be required. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. Okay, this is a great question. Can we do a mass email from last year's applications? So under admin, we touched on this briefly in our overview about mass communications. So I'll go down here to send communications, click next, and here I can use these filters to get a list of people that I want to send a notification to. So I can filter by a certain intake site or a certain distribution site, certain distribution dates, these kinds of things. This test thing that I'm using here doesn't have enough applicants in here. Oh, there we go. And then you can pull that forward and see a list of applicants that it's pulling in. So in this case, it would be sending an email to all of these, 6 people. I can uncheck any of these boxes to not include those. And then, importantly, and to kind of get to the question, I can also add additional email recipients down here at the bottom. So if I have a list of my applicants' emails from last year, or a subset of those, I can copy and paste those into this box. And those would also be delivered to that those particular email addresses. So there is a way to do it. Now that I've kind of walked through that myself, there's probably a better way to do that, where we can allow you to pull it directly from the previous campaigns. But there is a way to do it. So you can just copy and paste the emails into that box, and then, of course, from there you will configure your email and or text message, and you can send test emails to yourself. And this is a really great communication tool. If you haven't explored this yet, you should. If you're not sure how to get a list of email addresses from past clients, you can do that under admin. Just go to reports. There's a few different reports you can use. I like to use the applicant report. I'll click create new report. and you can actually get a list here of your applicants from any past campaigns. So you can, and then you can also do combinations. So, you know, maybe I want to get the last 2 years worth of applicants. I can filter by any particular site, and then I can say, okay, and all I want is their first name, last name, and email address. So maybe that's a report, and I'm actually going to save that as a new report so that I can come back and run that later. We're going to call it email report. And then not only does that actually download that report for me in an Excel format, but it also saves it so that I can come back here and run this report later. So if you're not sure how to get a list of your email addresses or really any of this information, if you're wanting to do a mailer, you're wanting to send out a letter and maybe make labels, mail labels, you can do that here as well. You can grab their address and create a report that way. So again, it'll download the actual report to your computer, but also save it as a report for later. So you can always kind of come back and run that. And you can run reports like this. You can create reports for angel data, applicant data, or whichever you're trying to pull. So hopefully that was probably too many answers to one question, actually. But let's see what else we've got here. I think I've answered a lot of these. There was a question about, and this one does come up a lot. It's not something that we currently offer, but maybe something we do in the future. And that's the ability for donors who are adopting angels, either online or via the corporate adoptions, to search for siblings or families. We have had some requests along those lines, so that may be something we look into as we get a little closer to angel adoption season, allowing donors to kind of group or see by family. We do just also have to be careful about putting too much personal information out there that would help someone identify a family. But certainly something that we've been asked before and can look into. But as of now, the donors don't know anything about the angel, just kind of beyond their basics, their name, their age, and their kind of wishes. They don't know which angels are related to whom. A really great question here is, can you put angels back into the pool to be adopted if they had already been adopted? And the answer is yes, you can do that. If I go back here under angel records, there's a really simple way to do that. You can see these two down here at the bottom have already been adopted. So under the donor column, I can see the name of the person who adopted them. I can actually just check those boxes and click unadopt these angels. And this is just telling me, it's warning me, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You're going to unadopt these angels, but I'm going to put in my initials to confirm that I really do want to do this. And now those angels have been unadopted. What that means is that they are back to whatever status they were before. So if they were allocated to a certain group, or in this case, this one was allocated online, it is back in the online allocation pool. So that angel will show up to be adopted on the online adoption portal again. It puts them right back to where they were before. Okay, so that is an important thing to make sure you understand if you're going to be unadopting angels. But the answer, it sounds counterintuitive, unadopting them, but yes, absolutely you can. Yeah, similar question, can you adopt the same angel twice? That's really the only way to do it. The only way to adopt the same angel twice is to unadopt it first, and then it becomes available for adoption again. The system will keep the record of the second person that adopted it, but that is really the way you could do that. This is a great question about, do you have to use names for angels? This is a two-part question. The system, CSAM, does require that we collect at least the first name of the angel. So if I come back here under campaign admin, let's see, we've been here a lot today. Back to our application. We go to the angel step. And you can see here that the first name for the angel, that is grayed out. You can't unselect that. We do have to collect the first name of the angel, and that's really for your administrative purposes. It's going to be really hard to tell what angel is who if you don't have at least first names for angels within a family. We do not require to collect the last name on an angel, although you can set that to be required just by checking the box there. So that's thing number one. We do require at least a first name for angels. So I said this was a two-part answer. That's part one. Part two is, yes, we have to collect the first name, but we don't necessarily have to do anything with the first name. So if I go here to general, my general tab, one of the questions here says, do you want to print the angel's first name on the tag? We never print last names on tags. That's a privacy problem. We would never do that, but we will include the first name on the angel tag if you select yes. If you select no, when you then go to print your angel tag, it will just have the angel's age and wishes and those kinds of things. It won't have their first name. And that also goes for the online adoptions. So if you select no here, it will not print the first names on the angel tags, and it also will not display them on the online adoption page. So although we do have to collect the first name, we do not necessarily have to use it, if that makes sense. All right. Another quick question. Once the online application date has closed, meaning it's closed to the public, nobody else can enter applications, can I, the Angel Tree administrator, still go in and edit and make changes to applications? Absolutely. You can definitely do that. There is no date or limit to when you can edit applications. There are certain things, once an angel is adopted, there are certain things that you can no longer go back and edit. But as far as editing the applications for the purposes of approvals and review and cleanup, yeah, you can definitely do that after the online adoptions have closed. Let's see. Is there a way to view applications that have been declined? Yes, absolutely. So we'll go here under applicant records. And again, I'll just use this filter. This filter is very, very handy. It's how you can find pretty much anything. We don't have any that have been declined yet, so let's do that. Let's grab one and let's decline this application. You typically want to give a reason that the application is being declined. Program is closed or something. Let's go ahead and confirm decline. All right, so now we have an application that has been declined. Okay, this is a good question. Do I need to delete last year's distribution site? This is an important question and also a two-parter. I guess it could be taken a couple of different ways here. First of all, just because there are so many new people, if you're not aware of this, if you haven't closed your campaign for last year, that's the very first thing you need to do. If your campaign up here at the top says, 2021, this is your campaign for last year, you need to finalize that campaign and restart a new one for this year. So you would do that by clicking under campaign admin, and click finalize campaign, and then click finalize, and it will walk you through the process of starting this year's campaign. So that's one thing. I don't think that's what this question means, but just in case anybody was unaware of that, that is really important. Make sure you do that. If we're talking about this site tab, so from year to year, we will always bring back the sites that you used last year. So, for example, if you had, a core address or a warehouse or something from the previous year, we'll always bring that forward just to make it easier for you to reuse it. But you don't have to use it. The question was, do I need to delete them? No, you don't need to delete them because they're not hurting anything by being there as a kind of historical item. Unless you have one of these 4 checkboxes checked, it's not being used in the system anyway. So there really is no reason to to worry about deleting them. Again, if all of those 4 checkboxes are unchecked, then it's not being used anyway. So there's no need to worry about those, about trying to go in and undeleting them or anything. Okay, so that was a really good question. Okay, how would you utilize the system to make creating physical tags easier? This is a great question. I hope this person is still on here. There is a whole video about printing angel tags. It's this one here called Angel Tags and Barcodes. That one is going to have a lot of in-depth information about how to print tags. The system really does everything for you. All you have to do is have pre-purchased the stock, like the paper, the card stock that your tags are going to be printed on. Typically, it's like a legal size card stock that has like pre-perforated holes on it where you can tear them into 3 tags. Typically, those are the kind of model that you're looking for. But as long as you've purchased that ahead of time, actually creating the tags, the system really does everything for you. I don't want to spend a lot of time looking over that, but make sure to watch that video. And one of the main settings here related to this, if you go back to the Campaign Admin General section, where it says Angel Tag Template, this is where you choose which format you want your tags printed in. And then the video will walk you through actually how to print them. It is pretty straightforward, and you do that from the Angel Records screen, really simply by just selecting the angels that you want to print, however many that is, and then you just click Print Angel Tag. It will use whatever template you have selected in your campaign setup, and they'll say, okay, it's about to print these 4 tags. Do you want to include barcodes? We'll say yes. It will print the tags, and then those tags are printed as a PDF document. So you can't actually see it because it's not sharing the right screen. But they're printed as a PDF document that then you can just hit print on and run it through your printer and have your cardstock already in the printer. And it will have everything, the angels' names, all of their, if you want to include their names, it will have their needs and wishes and those kinds of things. So it makes tag printing very easy. It's still a process to go through because you need to print in smaller batches of like 100 angels at a time. And so that can be a little time consuming, but it's much better than manually needing to create tags. The other question, I'm like flying through these now, so I'm really sorry if I'm going too fast. But another question was about printing applications. So going back to applicant records, there's a couple ways to do this. I can open an individual application. So let me just go ahead and click on one. In the upper right corner, there is a print icon. And I can just click to print that. I can have the applicant sign it. A lot of times if you're doing in-person applications, you will need to print that for them to sign. So that's one way to do it. If you're kind of doing it one by one, you can print applications that way. Another way to do it, going back to our applicant records, would be use the filters. Okay, filters are always very, very important. Use these filters to get a list of all of the ones you want to print. Maybe you want to just wait till everything is approved and then at the end print all of the approved applications. So here I would filter by approved, and then I would just click this button here at the top, print applications, confirm, and that will actually create a document. It takes a minute, especially depending on how many applications you have. But that will create a document that contains all of those applications, and you can print them all at once. And the application does include the information on the applicant, the parent, the head of household, and also all of the angels, and has that family barcode there as well. While we're talking about that, you might want to print other things besides applications. There are what we call family labels and warehouse labels as well. So the same kind of mechanism, I would just filter to whichever ones I'm wanting to print. I'll show you what the family labels look like. These are typically something that you would print off and stick on the boxes or bags. It really just lists the main family's name and then lists each of the angels. And then very similarly, the warehouse labels. I think these are probably the more useful ones, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there you go. Same kind of process, but it has the family ID at the top. It lists each of the angels, and then the barcode associated. And you can use these to stick on the family. So there's a family that has 3 angels right there. You can stick these on the box or the bag for that particular angel, that particular family. So that's one way. 2 different ways you can print applications, and then while we're at it, a few different ways you can print some different labels and reports to use in your distribution center. Let's see. A question about, is there a practice site where you can do kind of mock intake? There's not a practice site per se, but it never hurts to enter some test applications. Typically when we do it, what we'll do is we'll actually put the word test in the name. So we'll, put like test Trisha, test Burn, and submit an application, have our users kind of go through the process of approving them and learning how to do them. And then we'll just come here and delete the applications once we're done with them, right? Once we're finished, you can remember by clicking the red X, that's how we delete an application. So if you want to use it in that sense for testing, you're absolutely welcome to do that. I would just recommend that you do something like test, or, put some special code in there so that you know which ones to go back and delete. That's what I would do. The question, is there a pre-made toy request sheet in this platform? The answer is no. Every location is so different on that front. Some have really extensive lists of toys that they allow them to choose from. Some only limit it to a handful. And then some prefer to have just a wide open, just tell us what you wish for, and they don't have them picked from a toy sheet. So we don't have a preset one, but again, the way you would do that, we looked at this a little earlier, would be under the campaign application, and you would create one of those custom lists for the angel section. So for their wish list, you would enter all the toys that you have available. And something that I didn't mention, so let's look at this wish list, for example. So something I didn't mention, if this is where you wanted to list all your toys, you'd list each toy on a separate row, but then you can also enter the minimum and maximum age that toy should show for. So, for example, if I put, toddler learning toys, I could put that that's only going to show from ages 0 to 4. Or I could put, video games only for ages, 10 to 12 or something like that. So that when the applicant is actually applying online, it kind of already limits it down to what's relevant for that age group, rather than having them choose from a larger list and then, kind of avoid any confusion. So those are some different options. We don't have a pre-made request list, but this is where you would enter your request list. This person has left already, but I'll go ahead and mention it just in case this question's on anyone else's mind. The question was, is there a way to transfer the client information from AngelTree into their WellSky program? Currently, that is only available in the Central Territory. It's something that we had a specific web training on already for users in the Central Territory. If you're unsure about that, reach out to your divisional social services support team that are helping with AngelTree this year in the Central Territory, that is. So we're kind of working out piloting that program with the Central Territory. If you're in one of the other territories, we don't currently have that set up, but it is something that you may see in the future. So just kind of throwing that out there because I know the word kind of gets around. But that is one difference between the territories at the moment, is that that's only available in the Central Territory. A lot of these are a little bit more specific, and it looks like our team has answered the majority of them. If not, we will definitely try to follow up with everyone, because we are well over our time here. So I want to be respectful of that. A lot of these are repeated kind of questions as well. So we do have another session on Wednesday next week. Different people will be joining with different questions. So if between now and then you realize you do have more questions you want to ask, feel free to register for that one as well, or submit your questions for that. All right. It looks like we've answered most of these. So I am sorry if I wasn't able to get to your questions, but we will make sure that we reach out and get that answered for you. I appreciate everyone's time today. I know we went over, but this is a hot topic. It's Christmas time already, so I want to make sure to answer as much as we can. So again, if you have more questions or you come up with any between now and next Wednesday, you're welcome to join the second session of this webinar. It's just going to be a Q&A again. Maybe the first 15 minutes will cover that same intro, but the rest of the time will just be for questions. So feel free to join in. I appreciate everybody's time today, and be sure to use those resources and reach out to us for any additional help you need. So we appreciate y'all. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much.